Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey were just at the Texas Capitol, y'all. And it wasn't to shoot a movie, it was to advocate for the Texas film and TV industry, specifically to ask for more incentives that could bring in millions. Today on CityCast Austin, we're hearing about it from a filmmaker who works very closely with some of our favorite Austin celebrities. It's Monday, May 5th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here today with Chase Musselwhite, co-founder of Media for Texas. There are a couple of proposals at the Texas Legislature to increase our state's film incentives. So first off, what is it like to be at the Capitol lobbying for a bill because I saw that my husband, Woody Harrelson, was there and Matthew McConaughey. I mean, that's wild. What is it like to be at the Capitol lobbying for a bill with stars?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because I definitely never saw or thought that I would be at the Capitol sort of lobbying a cause or championing a cause. I am a filmmaker, director, writer, producer. And about 2 years ago, my path sort of led me in this direction. I really wanted to make a feature film in Texas. I had it set at my high school, which is the same high school that Wes Anderson went to. And when push came to shove, my financier said, actually, I'm only going to greenlight this project if we shoot it in Louisiana. That happened. And that was just a no. I walked away from that opportunity because it needed to be shot. It needs to be shot at this high school. And right after that happened, I was asked to help produce the Good for Texas video, the first video with Dennis and Matthew and Glenn and all those people. So I would say that was the first, whoa, what is happening kind of moment. But since then, I've now seen them and am familiar with them a couple of times, multiple filmings, multiple hearings being done at the Capitol. And so now it's sort of just like daily business, got to get in there. What can we say that's going to get these representatives to understand and hear the message correctly and hear the right talking points? So it's all business now, and it's really exciting and it's really interesting. And I love being right there at the forefront of, what's happening and what's changing here in Texas.
I'm curious if their presence actually helps move the needle along, because I imagine that it would, especially if they come in with okay, no, this is about business. This is not about us being stars. We want to get this done. Can you talk a little bit about how they influence things?
It's one thing if I go up there and say something, or if someone who they don't know goes up there and says something, but really hearing from people that they know and trust, knowing and trusting is really important to deliver the facts, because anyone could go up there and say anything, but when it comes from the right person, I think it really hits home. And what's so great about Matthew, for example, and he's been so amazing, he has his own lobbyist. My Media for Texas group has their own lobbyist, and now all the lobbyists are working together. Matthew has lived in Texas for, many, many, many years. So it's really not coming from a Hollywood voice. It's coming from a Texan. And I feel like he feels Texan through and through with his involvement at UT, being a professor there, all of his involvement in Texas, in other forms of politics as well. So I think that really goes a long way with the legislature, and especially with the most recent fact that he gave. I don't know if you watched the hearing, but he was so gung-ho about wanting his new show that he's shooting with Woody, currently in production in Dripping Springs in Texas, to be shot in Texas, that him and Woody offered 15% back on their salary or the wages that they were supposed to receive.
What?
Yeah, to keep the project in Texas, because Apple had passed on Texas and had greenlit Georgia. Texas was not going to work for them. And the only reason it's here is because Matthew and Woody gave back 15% of their budget to make it happen, which is pretty crazy.
That's actually kind of cool. So,
it's super cool.
It's the definition of putting your money where your mouth is.
Right, exactly.
And I love that. I love to see that in practice. So, okay, what is the status of the bill right now?
We're in the House portion of our bill now. It's fully passed out of the Senate. It's done in the Senate. There's a couple of steps it has to go through in the House in order to be heard on the House floor. And we just went through one of those big, big steps, which means it was voted out of committee. Nice. So now it can go be heard on the House floor, essentially. So really excited about that. The vote was 7-1, 7 yeses, 1 no, which is a really good sign.
Oh, man. Okay. So it's moving and grooving. We're getting it done. I like this. Yeah. Texas is one of 37 states that offers an incentive to film here. Have these incentives mattered in the past? Have they worked? Are they pulling people in?
Totally. And I would say it's really interesting because when the incentive started around the early 2000s, Louisiana was the first state to get a incentive program. But before that point, Texas was essentially the third media coast. We had a booming film industry. That was during the heyday, or not heyday, Rick is still crushing it, but Rick Linklater and Robert Rodriguez. And all of those major productions happening here consistently. In fact, the last time I was with Glenn Powell, when I was talking to him, he was like, without that period of time, I wouldn't be where I am today because I wasn't moving to Hollywood. I was able to become an actor because I was jumping on auditions constantly in Austin, where he's from.
Wow.
So that period of time was really significant for Texas film production history. And then Louisiana started the incentives. And what we saw was that these were extremely impactful for bringing production to a state. And we essentially saw the majority of our production leave our borders because out of those 35 states, Texas's incentive program ranks pretty far on the bottom, surprisingly. And there's a couple main reasons for that. One being our program is not long-term. It has yo-yoed amounts drastically every 2 years. Every other program is long-term. So they know how much funding they're going to have for 10 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah.
And the reason why that's so important is because the TV shows are also really important to incentivize because they provide stability. So if you land a 5-season show, that's amazing because now your crew knows for 5 years that they have a job, And without long-term incentives, you cannot bring a TV show of that caliber to the state.
Right.
And currently, the ratio that has been accepted and approved in Texas is for every dollar spent on incentives, this equates to $4.69 for an economic output for the community. Those numbers were established by the governor's office when studying what the incentives have done for the state so far at a much lower level even. So we can expect that number to be a lot higher with a bigger incentive package.
So for several years, the total for film incentives in Texas was under $100 million.
Way under.
And then in 2023, the lawmakers raised it to $200 million.
Yes.
And this new bill would more than double that to $501 million every 2 years for 10 years. And this is all funded by sales and use tax. Now, I want to get deeper into why should our sales tax go to subsidizing an entertainment industry?
So I personally think it's one of the best returns on investment of any industry that could come to the state. So we have a lot of incentive programs. People often look at the Texas Enterprise Fund, which is what this new film fund would be modeled after. And that's generally considered to be a great return on investment. The Enterprise Fund attracts like Apple Campus to come and build its whole facility here in Texas. It offers it an incentive out of general revenue, and then that Apple will bring its entire production and build the whole campus here in Texas. We actually recently did we broke down the incentive comparison between these large tech and like construction and whatever facility is coming to Texas, their returns versus the return that film gives to the state. And while it takes more money to attract the film, so it would take about $30 million to attract a $100 million film here, because that's the going incentive rate, about 30%. When you look at how quickly that $100 million is being spent in Texas in a matter of 3 months' time. So over the course of 90 days, $100 million is being injected into a local community. And that's just the first direct local spend. And that is huge, especially because film productions go to all over the state. They're shooting in like Bastrop, Stevensville, Corpus Christi, places that wouldn't normally see a large industrial like economic push or driver are now getting a massive amount of cash flow injected into their communities on a much smaller level. I love this story from Bastrop. Back before we had incentives, when the state was moving and grooving with production, there was this flower shop out in Bastrop. It was about to close its doors. And then a film shoot came to town. And that flower shop did more business than it did an entire year in the week that the film shoot was shooting in its flower shop. That just puts it into perspective.
Yeah,
And so that's where that $1 in equates to almost $5 out, a 500% return on incentive dollars. So that's why I think it's a great use of our sales tax revenue to bring these productions. And that's just a first level. On top of that, you'll see developments of studios, businesses that become like more viable because film production is consistent and stable. You look at Georgia, which has the #1 program. That Trilla studio build cost $1.5 billion. That was not incentivized by the state. That only came because film production was steady and constant. So you get all this secondary incentivized businesses and builds because film production is consistent. It's a whole industry built up around it.
People are going to go where there's work. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's a great use of our revenue. And we also have a lot of it. Just this year, the sales tax revenue is coming in around $41 billion. So we're just asking for $250 million a year out of that $41 billion. So I think that the ROI is pretty worth it.
Americans everywhere are kind of changing their spending habit because of tariffs and the uncertainty in the in the economy. So is there a backup plan if sales and use tax revenue isn't there in the future? Or if that purse gets smaller, does then the commitment to your program get smaller too? How does that work?
I mean, I don't think that we're even at a point where it could possibly get so low that we would be worried about that. General revenue for 2024 comes in at $83 billion. Ooh. And right now, the state has a surplus of about $25 billion per year. So that's $25 billion that kind of just sits there and grows because we don't have a use for it. So worst case scenario, if all that sales tax revenue did not come in, which by the way, the film productions would put money back into sales tax revenue because we're spending and we're buying and we're doing a lot, we would probably revert to general revenue.
Wow. It's really funny. This is kind of like a non sequitur, but I just forget how much money Texas has. I just forget on a regular basis. I know. As soon as you said that number, I was like, of course we have $25 billion. Of course we do.
And so it's funny because that's actually the reason why we don't have a competitive program, because other states really don't have the economy that Texas has. Right. So they looked to film to diversify their economy. The reason it's taken Texas so long to be like, we should do this, because we didn't need to. We didn't need to economically. Right. But now we're realizing it is a really good ROI. Also, we should not be in last place. Also, we could be actually the leader in this nation when it comes to film production. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, okay, do you think it's going to actually get passed?
I really hope so. I'm feeling really good about it. We have a great champion. It's very rare that you have the lieutenant governor pushing your bill, saying this is a priority bill I want passed. On top of that, we have a great author in the House, Todd Hunter. And Senator Huffman did a great job in the Senate. I think with all three of those people pushing it, it looks really great. In past sessions, the community was not together so much. It was a lot of spaghetti being thrown at the wall, people not really communicating. And so, that's really why we founded Media for Texas, to do what we could to aid in whatever way we could to bring everybody together. So from the community standpoint, we're all in this together. We're pushing this together. There has never been so many people behind this from so many different sectors. We have, for example, Hillwood, a major real estate development company, one of the biggest ones in America, pushing this bill as well. But even still, there's still a worry. There's still this deep-seated fear of Hollywood coming to Texas.
Yep.
Which is ironic because on that level, if you have a problem with Hollywood, wouldn't you want to do it your own way here, if that's the case?
Well, and also, Hollywood is already here, y'all. This just in. It's been here for a long time.
It's been here. People are moving here. And at the same time, the bill, it only benefits Texans. It only incentivizes Texas residents and in-state spending. In no way does money trickle out of the state for this. It's there in the bill. So if you really look into it and read it, you'll see that anyone will see it's a really pro-Texas bill. But I think there's still a bit of fear. So that's sort of the last thing that is being combated at this point. So we're really hoping that, get enough yeses and get this bill over the finish line.
Hey y'all, it's your last chance to see what the Constitution means to me at the Zach Theater. And if you're on the fence about seeing it because maybe it sounds kind of dry or you're not a history person, let me try to change your mind. This Tony Award-winning play is less than 10 years old and it's autobiographical. The playwright Heidi Schreck dives deep into what the Constitution has meant to her and to 4 generations of women in her family. It's a comedy and it's also been called soul restoring. I don't know about y'all, but I could do with a little soul restoring right about now. You can see What the Constitution Means to Me on stage at the Zach Theater now through May 11. Get your tickets at zachtheater.org. That's ZACH theater.org. What do former President Lyndon B. Johnson and the movie Jaws, yes, that Jaws, have in common? A new exhibit at the LBJ Presidential Library. Before he wrote Jaws, Peter Benchley was President Johnson's speechwriter, and this temporary exhibit is all about Benchley's journey from the White House to best-selling novelist to ocean conservationist. Talk about a fascinating career. Don't miss this chance to learn all about Benchley and Johnson's environmental legacy, how Jaws changed our understanding of sharks, and much more. From the White House to the deep ocean, LBJ, Jaws, and Conservation will be at the LBJ Presidential Library from now through October 19th. Find out more about the exhibit at lbjlibrary.info/Jaws. Hey y'all, it's Nikki. If your mom is like my mom, the one thing she really wants from you this Mother's Day is to see you. This year, you can help her do that all the time by giving her an Aura digital picture frame, which Wirecutter says is the best digital photo frame. My mom, Daisy, loves to be surrounded by pictures of her kids, her grandkids, and the memories we've made together over the years. But y'all, she has no more room on her walls. So this year, I'm giving her an Aura frame, which can hold a crazy amount of photos, and it'll keep her in the loop. We just had a family vacation in Denver, and so instead of wrangling a photo album out of our phones, my sister and I can just upload them directly to the frame. Plus, my sister is always digitizing old photos, and we can send her those too, so none of them will get lost. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com. Promo code is CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. There's some criticism that maybe tax money shouldn't go to things that put Texas in a bad light. Any truth to that?
So when I was talking about, this is, people are worried about Hollywood coming to Texas, that's more on the right side of criticism. We're also getting criticism on the left side. So we're getting criticism from every side. Criticism on the further left side worries that this bill with the segment in it that states no film that shows Texas in a negative light will get funding, and no film that has excessive nudity on the level of pornography will get funding. So actually, this is pretty common. All those other 37 states that you mentioned that have programs, I've actually read all of the codes in their bills that were enacted into law. Every single one of them almost has a line like this. It's just pretty standard. It's state money. If you're making a film about how the state is horrible, it could be like anti-propaganda in a way, and they're not going to fund that. And so people get a little bit worried about that, but we've always had this in our program. We've always had it, and we've had numerous films of all different types of ideologies and creativity being pushed through our program. So this isn't going to change. It's basically staying the exact same as it was. There's some more criticism as well, saying that there's been an added 2.5% uplift if you shoot a faith-based project. Or you can get a 2.5% uplift if you're shooting a project that has Texas heritage. So anything that's an uplift is just a plus. It's not taking away from other people. It's just, and the faith-based productions like The Chosen, for example, did a wonderful job at keeping our crew employed during this, what I call drought period, when we had no production here.
Yeah.
And those are the productions that often are on the lower end of things in terms of their budget level. So giving them an uplift, why not? I think everybody should get different uplifts. So
I'm curious, is it all faith-based or is it strictly like Christian-based?
No, all faith-based. And that was pointed out. Yeah. And Lieutenant Governor actually on the floor in the Senate made that note. He said, this isn't just a Christian uplift. This is any religious beliefs will get an uplift for making anything that's faith-based. And he listed various different religions that are in Texas.
That's wild. That is a little wild to me. That's wild.
Yep. So there's this project that I was consulting on. Someone wants to come and shoot this. They were a Texan. They grew up Muslim in the small mosque in the country in Texas. And to me, that would qualify for the faith-based as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're blowing my mind right now, because I absolutely would have thought that it had been Christianity only. You are blowing my mind.
Well, I think that would be illegal. So
yes. I mean, but also we skirt that line sometimes. But yes. I love that it's inclusive.
And it's actually, honestly, I think the world probably needs a little bit more faith and hope and everything put back into some of the entertainment we're seeing. So I think it's a great thing.
So, okay, because you bring up a really good point. And I think that is this conversation about, or this fear about Hollywood taking over Texas, or even just in general, people from California coming in and taking over our cities. And every time I hear these conversations, I say the same thing. People have already been here. They are already here. It is already happening. Since the pandemic, quite a few movie and TV stars have moved to Austin. I remember back in the day when it's like every time I would turn around, Quentin Tarantino would be here. Or I'd be like, is that Robert Rodriguez? Like, early, mid 2000s, whenever it was. Yeah. But and I'm seeing a resurgence in that. Every now and then I'm like, oh, look, another famous person that's living here. Oh, there's another famous person that's living here. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, since the pandemic, do we know how the local production scene has changed? Mm-hmm. Because now we're in this really wonderful place, I think, that really anybody can be a creator. If you just need a few resources and you can be a creator. Is Austin getting more on the map for creators?
I would definitely say so. As you mentioned, people have already moved here. They're already coming here. But what I think is interesting is that they come here and it doesn't feel like you're in Hollywood here. It still feels like you're in Austin. It still feels like you're in Texas. I don't love the vibes in LA right now. I'm very happy to be here. I don't necessarily want to work there. I mean, I love going there and doing work there when I have to, but I really love being here in Texas. And I think it's interesting that that's not a fear that we need to worry about, because when people come here, they're like, wow, people are really friendly. There's such a thing as Southern hospitality. And let me actually adapt myself to that instead of changing what's going on here. Yeah. So I think that fear is unfounded. And then secondarily, I do see Glenn Powell moved here. We're seeing a ton of, like you said, celebrity resurgence here. And I think what's really the most important thing that I'm seeing is that the students are finally starting to stay here. Finally, for the first time, we're seeing that instead of everyone mass exodus to LA, to Georgia, to New Mexico, it's like, oh, okay, wait, something's happening. Maybe I can stay here and do my job here. I would say that for the most part, production is still majority being outsourced, but we're starting with this Apple TV show that Matthew and Woody are doing, with Taylor Sheridan bringing all of his TV shows here. The start is happening. And that's why I feel like the momentum and the energy itself is going to get this bill over the finish line, because we can all feel it. I think people want a new home for the entertainment industry. And I really think Texas is going to step in and be that home.
So now I want to talk a little bit about I think that there is sometimes a misunderstanding that most movies that are made in Texas only happen in Austin or in Central Texas. But there are about 175 film-friendly communities in Texas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which to me kind of seems like a low number, because this is a big-ass state. So, so my question is, for anybody that might be asking the question, isn't that enough? Do they get any tax breaks from these municipalities or local governments, or is it all wrapped up in this one big bill?
For the most part, it's all wrapped up in this one big bill. A couple municipalities, San Antonio has had one. Houston is just starting one. You can get an extra 1 or 2% from the municipality for shooting there, which is great. Yeah. It's not common. You see that a lot in New York. Some in Georgia do that too. I expect we'll see more as more production comes to town. But for the most part, it's tied up in this big bill. And actually, Texas has the most film-friendly cities out of any state that has a program. When it comes down to it, everyone is so excited about film production coming to their town. And we have a lot of towns. And I would say that there's more and more being introduced all the time. The governor's office does a great job, being run by Adriana Cruz. She does a great job developing our film-friendly cities. And I mean, we hit 175 this year, which does seem like a little, but when you look at how many other states have, it's a ton.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. We far surpass other states with film-friendly cities. Yes, we see a huge amount of production in Austin. We see a huge amount of production in Dallas and Fort Worth now, actually, especially with Taylor Sheridan coming to town. But many of these productions shoot outside the cities because that's the look that they're going for. And the bill would provide an uplift for if you shoot in a rural area, you get an extra 2.5%, which is going to further incentivize people going to these smaller communities and putting their budgets and their money into those communities.
Yeah. So more film-friendly communities, more money into the state as a whole, period.
Yeah. Period.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes, there it is. So South by Southwest film and TV has blown up. It's out of control.
Yes.
And there are other similar festivals in town. There was just an indie movie festival at the Paramount, for example. Yeah. I'm curious, like, what impact are these big festivals, these big film and TV festivals, or even the small ones, having on the local entertainment industry?
So I think there's no necessarily because there's a film festival that will lead to a production happening in Texas, like one-to-one. But with the film festivals, and especially South by, and then there's AFF and DIF and ATX TV Fest, what they've done, and especially South by consistently, even during the years that we didn't have a whole lot of production, is they've kept Texas on the map. So whether or not people actually really understood what was happening with our production, everyone thinks of Austin as a film town. Because there has been consistent film news coming out of Austin because of South by and because of Rick being here, Rick Linklater, Rob Rodriguez, Troublemaker Studios is still here, even though Rick has had to shoot many of his most recent films out of the state. That's what's so amazing about the film festivals is it creates that relationship, between the Texas filmmakers being able to showcase their Texas films, but it keeps Texas on the map in terms of how the rest of the world and how the rest of the country understands Texas's role on this landscape. And the more Texas is on the map, the more people will want to come here indirectly and shoot here and make this a hub for media production.
So, okay. Now I just have some nosy questions. I want to also go back again to this every 2 years, how we were flip-flopping and changing things instead of just giving some long-term stability is sticking in my brain. And so Ransom Canyon and The English Teacher, very popular shows set in the Hill Country and Austin, but it is not filmed here.
Nope.
So
New Mexico.
That makes me think about all, other movies that have this very, they're intentionally definitely trying to be in Texas, but not. Could they have been if we had this bill earlier, or if they had had a little bit more long-term solutions earlier?
Totally. I would say almost everyone, wants to do business in Texas. When they come to Texas, again, they see how friendly everybody is. And B, you always want to shoot where the look is, if possible. It's no easier shooting in New Mexico than it is in Texas. In fact, we're often known for having the best crew, just saying. But at the end of the day, the bottom line, you can't argue with it. When you're getting $30 million back from New Mexico versus $10 million back from Texas, that's money you can't argue with. And they're going to go to New Mexico. And when you know that money is coming year after year, it's a risk that it's too much money. It's too risky to not go for the stable, safe choice. Taylor Sheridan, he testified at the Senate hearing, the first one we had, and he said, Hell or High Water was my love letter to Texas. And it absolutely almost broke my heart that was shot in New Mexico.
Oh.
So we're seeing that a lot.
Yeah. It's, what's really funny? I was having this conversation with someone literally this weekend. We were having this conversation about trying to put our finger on what it is about the state that is so specific. There's something there, even the way it looks, that it's hard to emulate. It's hard, it's hard to come across on screen. Some people get it right. And I'm like, oh shit, that really does look like Texas. But a lot of times when things are set in Texas, I'm like, that's not Texas. No. It's you can tell.
And sometimes they'll go shoot for a half day or a day. No Country for Old Men is a perfect example.
Yes.
So they shot for a day or 2 days, a couple days, at most in Marfa, Texas, to get all their exterior shots. Everything else, absolutely 90% of their shoot days happen in New Mexico.
Wow.
But they're able to achieve the look because they achieve the exteriors, because they get all those wide establishing shots in Texas, and then they go do the majority of the work that's paying all these people across the border in New Mexico.
We're just leaving money on the table right now.
We're leaving money on the table, just a couple miles away. People shoot on the border of New Mexico and Texas all the time in New Mexico and employ New Mexicans. And it's funny because that it reminded me of, so the film commissioners, as they've been going around and trying to, convince studios to keep coming to Texas, despite our maybe lower than competitive base rate, they use the term the Tex factor, which kind of sums up, I think, what you were getting at.
Yes.
There's various reasons that that sets Texas apart. Our locations, our people. Oh, when you live here, there's no income tax. Oh, you can also get, there's a whole list of things. And they use that to try to be able to help convince people to come and shoot in our state. At the end of the day, the bottom line speaks louder. But once you're here and you know the Tex factor, then you get it. So
I love that. My other nosy question is, do you have a favorite TV show or movie that was filmed in Austin?
Yes. Well, maybe not Austin, but Houston. Well, so I have to pick Rushmore, which is Wes Anderson's second film.
Such a good, it's so good.
So that's the high school that I went to.
Oh, I love that.
That's where I'm going to set my first film. And as you see in the film, it just can't be, it still looks like that, by the way. It just can't be shot. Yeah, it still looks like that for the most part.
I love that. Okay, so tell me the name of the school again in Houston.
St. John's.
St. John's.
Yes.
Okay. Oh my gosh. See, now I have to go back and watch Rushmore.
Yes. And so also, Dazed and Confused, Friday Night Lights is a big favorite for me too.
I was definitely Dazed and Confused for me because every single part of it, I'm like, it's so, there's something. Fun. Yes, there's something really fun about seeing your home in movies. I don't know why that's such a brain tickle, but it really, really is. It's like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And Texans are proud people. And so when we see our state being, represented by different landscapes and different people and different things that aren't Texan, we kind of get a little uneasy, a little gruntled about that,
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Chase, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Is there anything else that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask you about or we haven't discussed?
I really think, hitting home that this bill is for Texans and it's for Texas development and it only benefits Texans is really the biggest thing that we're pushing right now, and really sort of correcting some misinformation out there that we shouldn't be using Texas taxpayer dollars to fund this industry. Most industries are incentivized at this point. Tech, business, development of all sorts. It's just not as discussed because Hollywood and movies are discussed a lot more. The ROI that this brings and this will bring to Texas is astronomical. And it's really going to be great. And I think that in 5 years' time to 10 years' time, Texas is going to be the new leader of film and entertainment in this country. And I'm very excited for that.
This is awesome. Chase, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for bringing me up to speed. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. This is awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. And thanks for giving me the opportunity, because I feel like there's sometimes so many layers that there's not a good way of, except through having a conversation to get people to really understand all the different facets. So this has been great. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. I don't know about you, but I'm really hoping that I see Woody Harrelson in the flesh very soon. You can find links to Media for Texas's work in our show notes. And if you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.